Authorities in a northeastern U.S. jurisdiction have confirmed the conclusion of a months-long judicial process involving a former police chief who was accused of asserting that law enforcement officers should be exempt from standard legal accountability. According to court documents and official statements, the case centered on allegations that the former official, whose name has been withheld pending additional administrative procedures, oversaw internal practices described by investigators as inconsistent with departmental policy, statutory requirements, and widely recognized professional standards. The proceedings drew widespread public attention due to recorded statements introduced as evidence, in which the defendant was alleged to have implied that officers under his command were, in his words, above the law. The presiding judge, known publicly for a long tenure on the municipal bench and for an extensive record of adjudicating minor offenses with emphasis on due process, issued a ruling that emphasized equal application of legal standards to all public servants. According to the official transcript, the court stated that the principle of accountability extends uniformly to every individual holding governmental authority, regardless of rank or years of service. The court concluded that the conduct outlined in the indictment constituted violations of both state criminal statutes and administrative ethics regulations. Following deliberations, the judge imposed a custodial sentence consistent with sentencing guidelines applicable to abuse of authority cases, noting that the ruling was based strictly on evidence presented during trial. Investigators began examining the department nearly 18 months before the verdict, responding to whistleblower reports alleging misuse of authority, irregular handling of internal complaints, and actions that appeared to contradict established procedural rules. The initial inquiry, handled jointly by a state-level oversight agency and an independent commission reviewing law enforcement practices, expanded after auditors reported discrepancies in documentation related to disciplinary actions. Officials stated that the irregularities prompted them to conduct interviews with officers, administrative staff, and community members who had filed earlier complaints. Many of those interviews, according to investigative summaries, raised questions about systemic failures in oversight mechanisms. The prosecution's case relied heavily on digital evidence, including internal communications, audio recordings obtained under court authorization, and documents demonstrating deviations from required reporting procedures. Prosecutors argued that these materials illustrated a pattern in which the former chief allegedly discouraged subordinates from documenting misconduct incidents and communicated personal views that contradicted statutory requirements for transparency and accountability. Defense attorneys disputed this characterization, claiming the recordings were taken out of context and asserting that the defendant's remarks referred to morale issues, not to legal immunity. They also argued that administrative lapses were the result of resource shortages rather than intentional wrongdoing. Throughout the trial, expert witnesses in law enforcement administration testified regarding national standards for supervisory conduct. They noted that policies adopted by most agencies emphasize the importance of consistent discipline, accurate documentation, and adherence to constitutional guidelines. According to trial transcripts, several experts stated that any suggestion that officers are exempt from legal consequences contradicts both federal and state jurisprudence. The court referenced this testimony when underscoring the legal expectation that law enforcement leadership serve as models of compliance rather than exceptions to it. Public reaction to the case has been significant, with community groups, civil rights organizations, and police associations issuing statements throughout the proceedings. Civil rights advocates noted that the case highlighted challenges that can arise when oversight systems depend heavily on internal reporting. Police union representatives, while maintaining neutrality regarding the defendant's guilt or innocence, stated that the case demonstrated the importance of clear leadership standards and training to reinforce lawful conduct within departments. City officials acknowledged that the publicity surrounding the investigation prompted them to accelerate previously planned reviews of internal protocols. The sentencing hearing included a detailed account of the factors considered by the court. Among those cited were the defendant's length of service, the nature of the offenses, the potential consequences of leadership misconduct for public trust, and the need to maintain consistency with prior cases. The judge noted that the ruling was not intended to generalize about the conduct of law enforcement officers as a whole but was instead directed solely at the actions established by evidence in this specific case. The court reiterated that the justice system relies on public confidence, which must be supported by transparent and legally grounded decision-making. Following the verdict, the State Attorney General's office released a statement acknowledging the cooperation of multiple agencies during the investigation. Officials confirmed that administrative reviews of the department are ongoing and that additional policy recommendations will be issued after those reviews are completed. The city's interim police leadership has implemented temporary oversight measures, including updated reporting protocols, mandatory refresher courses on accountability standards, and the appointment of an external consultant to evaluate internal disciplinary systems. Municipal authorities indicated that these steps are intended to reinforce compliance structures while long-term reforms are considered. Legal analysts observing the case noted that it could influence future discussions about law enforcement oversight, particularly in matters involving senior officials. They pointed out that the introduction of recorded statements as evidence demonstrates the increasing role of digital communication in administrative investigations. Some analysts observed that the case may encourage agencies to adopt clearer guidelines regarding acceptable conduct for high-ranking officers, especially concerning statements that could be interpreted as contradicting legal obligations. The defense has not yet announced whether it will appeal the verdict. Under state law, the defendant is entitled to seek appellate review on grounds including evidentiary challenges, procedural concerns, or alleged misapplication of sentencing guidelines. Legal experts indicate that such appeals typically require demonstration that errors during the trial had a substantial impact on its outcome. Any appeal would be reviewed by the state's appellate division, which would evaluate the trial court's decisions based on the existing record. As the defendant begins serving the imposed sentence, administrative processes related to pension status, civil service classification, and potential decertification from law enforcement eligibility remain under review. The state certification board responsible for determining eligibility to hold law enforcement positions has confirmed that it will review the case file to determine whether further administrative actions are warranted. Officials stated that the decision will be made in accordance with statutory requirements and will not depend on public commentary. City leaders have emphasized that the case should not be interpreted as reflective of the department's broader workforce. In public statements, they noted that thousands of officers across the region continue to serve in compliance with legal and ethical standards. They added that while the case underscores the need for strong oversight, it also demonstrates the capacity of existing legal structures to address misconduct when it occurs. According to city officials, maintaining this balance is essential to preserving both community confidence and operational effectiveness. The case now moves into its post-trial phase, with administrative reviews, oversight recommendations, and potential appellate proceedings expected to unfold over coming months. Authorities have stated that updates will be released as official decisions are finalized. For now, the ruling stands as a clear affirmation from the court that statutory and constitutional standards apply uniformly across all ranks of public service, and that legal accountability remains a central element of the justice system.